You're locked into the summer series with your man Louie T here on the Louie T Network. As the temperatures get hot outside, so does the content here on the Louie T Network. So stay cool. Your man Louie T is talking to some of the best in the business, talking National Football League. Enjoy the summer series. Okay, so we're back with another installment of the Summer Series, Season 2, Episode 3. Got a very special guest with me today, and this one is going to be a lot of fun, very interesting for a number of reasons. I don't think she realizes, and I'm about to get into that with her here in a second, how deep we are into this as fans. Like, we are very, very, I always say we're nerdy. You know, we obsess over every aspect of this team. And one of the things we really appreciate are the people that cover this team. They do a tremendous job. And I am pleased to be joined with someone that is covering the team at a very high level. I don't know if she understands just how high of a level. Again, we're going to get into that here in a second. But I'm here with someone that has done a tremendous job covering this team. Works for and is the president of Bowie TV, also the founder of Seawall Sports and Entertainment. I'm here with Candi Waller. How are you doing today, Miss Waller?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. As we talked about before we got on here, very hot. Okay,
Yes.
that's an understatement. I saw triple digits on the thermostat for the first time this year. So I said that's some oppressive heat outside, but we're inside, and that's why we call it the summer series. It's hot, and the content is heating up inside, and so we're going to get to a number of topics, mostly the Commanders. Before we do that, though, I want to take this opportunity. Give me 2 or 3 minutes here to try and give you some flowers if I can. So Candi does such a tremendous job covering this team, as I've mentioned a few times already, and when I approached her, she was so nice about coming on the program. It was a very pleasant experience. Not always the easiest to get people to come on and give a little bit of their time. But if you haven't already done this, please sub up Bowie TV. And when we talk about these beat reporters covering the team, I don't know if they always know that they are literally the voice of the fans, so to speak. And a lot of them have articles that they have to write. So there's an agenda that they're trying to push, or they're trying to ask specific questions to help them write the article that they're writing, et cetera, et cetera. But Candi does such a phenomenal job of asking questions that I think are at a personal level. Like, one of our favorite questions, and I can't stress to you how much we as fans obsess over every aspect of this team. Like, we know all of your names, right? We know your voices because we don't see your face, right? But we know your voices. We know what questions are being asked. If we think it's a dumb question, we come back and we talk about those things. Like, oh, why did they ask that question? That was a dumb question. We already knew what he was going to say. But you asked the best questions of all of the reporters. And one of our favorite ones had nothing to do with football. You literally just asked Jaden. It's been a long, off season for you. Obviously, one of his best friends had just passed away. And you just simply asked him, how are you doing? And that resonated with us because sometimes people forget that they're human. These players are human. They're people too, right? And so I always tell people with Bowie TV in particular, and again, if you haven't already done so, take this time. If you need to pause this video and go over and sub up right now, go ahead and do it so you don't forget, because I'm often one of the people that come back and talk about the interviews and the press conferences and the media scrums that you guys have. And nobody covers that aspect of the team better than you do. I'm talking about the team's coverage isn't even as good as Candi's coverage over at Bowie TV when it comes to Dan Quinn's press conference. You know how every time we watch those press conferences, they cut off the first 30 seconds or so. He's already talking, and you're like, well, what was said at the very beginning? Well, Candi's got all of it, right? Over at Bowie TV. She's got the whole thing. It's in like 8K, maybe 16K, okay? The quality, the coverage, the actual presentation is immaculate. she's got all of the player scrums. So you know how I always talk to you guys about what the players are saying. You're like, well, where are you getting this from? I'm getting it from Bowie TV. Every single time I'm coming to you guys with, you know, Frankie Louvu spoke for 4 minutes, or you know, Laramie Tunsil spoke for 3 minutes. I got it from Bowie TV. So if you're not locked in, if you're not plugged into the job that Candi is doing over at Bowie TV, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I just wanted to tell you, thank you for the job that you do. You do such a tremendous job keeping us as fans who are probably maniacal and obsessed with this team way past what we should be, plugged in to what the Commanders have going on. So thank you so much for what you do.
That was unexpected, and I really, really appreciate it. What you just shared with me is really one of my whys on why I got into this industry to begin with. From a coverage perspective, I just felt like there was a gap. Based on my background, I know I can ask questions. If you are in a field of any sort, you know, I believe in transferable skills. So if you're in a field where you ask questions for a living to get data to either confirm or deny the hypothesis that you have come up with, that is what you have to do. It's a data collection method, right? And you know, you got to scan your environment. You got to look at your environment and see what's here, what's not. I grew up in Prince George's County. I'm born and raised in Bowie. So it is definitely serendipitous, and it is, you know, personal. You know, it's professional, but leading this organization is personal for me as well. But it's like, what's not out there and what would help to tell the story. Because it's a whole story. You may have, I thank you so much again. I appreciate it. You know, on my show, I do a segment called Use Your Clues, and then I make jokes about pulling receipts. But there has been multiple times where I refer back to something that was said in an earlier presser, in an earlier scrum, because I'm trying to tie it into the story and what we're all watching. Right. And so, you know, I've also learned comes out of, you know, like insider tips where it's still like, well, what type of reporter do I want to be? Because I do understand that some things that you share could lead to competitive advantage for another team. So I choose to stay away from certain topics because I'm like, one thing I learned last year is that when the team does well, we all do well.
Business is booming. Business is booming when the team plays as well.
I'm like, well, shoot, I'm not about to tell what I saw because I'm just not. Right. You know?
Right. Absolutely.
Advantages to keep it secrets around here. But I'm, you know, you word it in a way, well, at least I try to. Right. And I thank you for sharing that the fan base thinks highly of my questions and the content, because we really do try to give, we're trying to close the gap in coverage. And what I see and where it comes across, you know, we cover Bowie TV covers the Baltimore Ravens as well. And so we're tried and true to the area and to the region. So I'm glad that comes across. I really am glad. And, you know, a lot of people have asked me about that question to Jaden, and I will be very transparent here, as I have on my post, as it was on ABC7. The reality is, if I had talked to Jaden, I would have asked him that off camera. That was truly a Candi Waller to Jaden Daniels question. Like that wasn't, you know, and I got to show up as myself all the time. Because we have plenty of time to talk to Jaden about football. Plenty. And I really want to know how he was doing, because if anyone follows him and just knows, you know, that was one of his best friends. And, you know, he was heartbroken over it. And so I really just wanted to know. And that's why I said at the beginning, there's only one from me to you. Because sometimes we get two, and if the time gets tight, you might not get any, or whatever the case may be. If I had a chance to talk to him prior to, I would have asked him that, and the cameras wouldn't have caught it. So everything happens for a reason. So I'm glad, because oftentimes that is frowned upon. Right? Not
I don't know why it would be, but because he appreciated that question. more than any other question that was asked of him, probably this entire offseason, you could tell he really appreciated somebody just asking about him and how he was doing. He even said, I appreciate you asking that.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's gone through grief, which I'm sure, depending on your age, everybody has at some point in time, it's painful. It hurts when it's somebody you truly love. And so I asked because I genuinely wanted to know. He has a tall task in leading this football team in this franchise. And it's like the stakes are even higher this year, because last year this time it was like no stakes. You just play football.
That's right.
But now it's like I can't go a day, I can't go an hour without seeing him in my news feed, and I'm like this is making me nervous now. And I normally don't get really whatever. Right. But yes, I appreciate all that you said. I appreciate the fan base. You all, please know that Bowie TV, when we try to have our storyline and what we're trying to aim for and choose, it really is based on what we think is a topic that's not discussed enough or not brought to the attention, or just what we're seeing. Like, it is genuine of, what, nobody's talking about this, and this, we need to talk about this, or we need to talk to this player, or what have you. It really is. I can dictate that a lot of, right. So when I first started the business, and it transcends to now, and that was during the Washington not so good, quite frankly, real bad days. Yeah. I said I never wanted to be the TMZ of sports. Like, there's a space for that. There's a space for that, and that space was never going to be here. If I had to talk about something, I would, but if I had a choice, then the answer was going to be no. For whatever organization I was leading, let's stick to what, and it's not about sticking to sports, right? Because I asked Jaden how he was doing. Let's stick to what we know is right. The best that we can, because we're gonna get it wrong sometimes too. So thank you.
No problem, none at all. I mean, that is the least I can do for all the work that you pour in to this fan base and your craft. So, like you said, I think you have like a mental typewriter or something. And you really do a great job, like you said, of taking the words that have been said, and then reusing that, repackaging it, and asking it in a question later on down the road. And I know DQ appreciates that too, because a lot of times you'll say, hey, you said this, and then it'll be verbatim, and then you'll equate it to something, and you'll bring it full circle. And again, that gives everything context, right? And right. So when you talk about your journey, I want to start with what got you into the business, this industry. I would assume that Seawall is your baby, right? And what was that, 2017 when that's first commenced?
Yes.
Correct. So yes. Talk to me about your journey. Did you grow up a Redskins fan? Did you grow up a Ravens fan? I know they came along a lot later. Like, growing up in Bowie, what led you to the point where you are right now?
Right. All things Washington. All things Washington for sure, because I grew up in the area. I'm just a tried and true, I would say, the authentic sports fan. And it's just one of the things that I loved. I mean, I was asked on a show recently, like my first sports memory, and I was like, this might sound weird, but it was like watching the George Michael Sports Machine. Like, I loved that show. Depending on your age, hey, Google it. And you can maybe but it was just, not what, tell your age without telling your age. With the George Michael Sports Machine, okay? And it was the way that he told stories, right? And he made you feel like you were everywhere, from, the Kentucky Derby to training camp, to the NBA Finals, to the US Open. I mean, he made you feel like you were everywhere, and you got everything. And as when I decided to jump into this, it was coming off of a trip to Super Bowl 51. And I think about all the irony in it now, right? Because that was the Dan Quinn Atlanta Falcons demise against the New England Patriots. And I would be like, I would never want that man to coach. got a lot of, joke, like I was
Mhm.
so anti, and I've told it so many times, like I couldn't have been more
Yeah.
wrong. And so
Right.
I'm about to
Right.
hit it all wrong.
I
Um,
mean, you're not dissimilar from the fan base. When he was
right.
announced as the hire here, a lot of fans were like, "No, what are y'all
Yeah,
doing?"
I
Right?
had to do my own research and use my own clues, and we could talk
Right.
about that in a moment, like
Yeah.
about that, because I realized I was wrong, right? Like a couple days before it was announced, like, oh yeah, I got this real wrong.
Yeah.
But we can get it. But I didn't see enough of myself telling sports
Mm.
stories,
Mm.
from a positive lens.
Mm.
We're seeing more of Black women
Yeah.
as active contributors to the sports conversation, but I
Yes.
did not see enough of myself on site.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was able to use my clues and figure out very soon, very early, like, wait, if you in the studio in this city, in that city, how were you at practice today?
Mm-hmm.
How are you telling me what happened there? Who
Right.
told you?
Right. Right. Well, you get the information.
Who are the sources? Who are they? I didn't see us, and that's the reality. I'm gonna speak, because other people can say, well, no, they had Black women here or there, but it's just active contributors, or women of color. Sometimes, women overall would be facilitators of the conversation, but not active contributors. And the difference, what I say, an active contributor, is that you can actually come and share what you saw and what you think, not just dictate to the men who gets to speak first, right? It's a different role. And I didn't see it. I didn't see enough of it. Right. And hey, inspired by President Barack Obama, says you be the change you want to see. And that's what I did. And I had to, put on my corporate hat and spending, many years in corporate America, and say, what would you do? So having to like insert myself into spaces, because I came into this space, I did not know anyone. I did not know anyone at all. So all these relationships that people may see I have now, this was built within the last 8 years, and continuing to build and cultivate, meet new people all the time. And so that's where it started. And then from Seawall Sports and Entertainment, Bowie TV, small, very small organization, just in Bowie. And a neighborhood friend of mine, his dad used to be on the channel, years ago. And he said, you need to go over there. So much of what you do reminds me of what my dad did. You should go over there and check it out. See if is it still there? They were still there. Not much going on. And then I ended up, having my show on that channel. And then it just, I ended up getting on the board. And then I was nominated for president like 2 years ago. And I accepted the nomination, was elected, and here we are, right? And so it's yes, it's here. And I had to learn very early on how to be objective. I don't know if anybody of Lake Lewis. He told me very early on at training camp in Richmond, he said, I'm watching you and your work ethic. I mean, you everywhere right now and out here, and I'm gonna tell you one thing you probably have to learn early on is, if you really want to be great at this, you have to learn how to be objective. Like, you gotta take your emotions out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I did. And it was like not hard. Everybody was like, it's so hard. Now, some days I used to be feeling bad because it was bad. It was.
Oh yeah. I mean, you saw all three of the last regimes, and there's just so different. We'll talk about that in a second.
Ooh, it was terrible. And I would be like, it was like finding out there was no Santa Claus. I don't know what your thing may have been, and maybe you didn't believe in make believe, but it's like finding out there was no Santa Claus, or the tooth fairy wasn't real, or just like, dang, this is bad. Oh wow,
Yeah.
And then I just kind of got used to it, unfortunately.
That's the worst part, when it just becomes kind of second nature. Like, yeah, here we go again, right?
Yeah. Yes. And I was able to navigate through that just from my communication strategy background, right? Just navigating what to say and what not to say. And I mean, I haven't always succeeded in that. But I started doing all of the sports in the area. I was wearing myself thin. When I got into this role, clearly two things happened. I got into this role, and then the Commanders ended up being good last year. And so Wizards didn't see me at all. And I've never done that since I've been in the business. I was like, dang, I didn't even go to a Wizards game. I would be talking to David Arnold like, I'm going to come back. And he was like, come back after the All-Star break. You here every day. I know you tired. Okay, I'll come back after the All-Star break. Didn't go back. He was, where were you? I was asleep. I was getting my rest because I'm tired.
It's a long season, longer than what you're used to, obviously.
I tell you, I didn't realize it until my parents said, you have literally been traveling since the beginning of August to the end of January. Because for some reason I didn't remember, even though it was very real, the 2 joint practices in preseason, right? With the Jets and then with the Dolphins.
That's right. And
I'm like, I really have been gone. And then you don't anticipate the second season.
Right.
Because I didn't, and that's why I brought up that question to Dan Quinn at the top of the postseason, because I said, you said. And I remembered chuckling. I remember laughing when he said it, like, oh, that's cute.
That's cute. They ain't going to the playoffs, but there will be no second season, but that's nice.
I mean, it was a consistent. I remember a Frankie Louie comment during training camp when he was like, oh yeah, because when you're playing in January and February, you got to be able to do it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, writing in my notebook, like, you don't have to worry about that. Like, I was just like, the shade. And I was just like, I gotta stop this.
Oh my God, you weren't wrong though. You weren't.
And I was like, and now as time goes on, I might start telling them like certain things that I thought or felt, or you want to know, like, just tell them, like, why am I even telling them this? And they be like, oh my God, like, what?
It's funny though, because when you say that, I remember Bobby Wagner saying that when he signed here, one of his family members was like, why you sign with them? You ain't going to the playoffs. And he was like, you don't know that, right? And so when you think about the transformation of this organization, and you've seen it as a fan, you've seen it covering the team, you saw what it was like under Jay Gruden, you saw what it was like under Rivera, and now obviously Dan Quinn. So I want to ask you, what's the biggest difference that you've seen between those 3 regimes? With obviously Dan Snyder was the common thread between Jay Gruden and Ron Rivera, but what's the biggest difference you see between when Jay Gruden was here as the coach, Ron Rivera was here as the coach, and now Dan Quinn here as the coach?
I mean, but to that point, it starts with the leadership, which is the owner, right? It really is. I mean, as much as everybody want to look at the coach and the GM, it starts with the owner and establishing exactly what they want. Now, one of the things that I was sharing on my show when they first bought the team was this cost $6 billion. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use my own clues. They want to see a return on their investment, and that return needs to happen quickly. Now, what I was spot on about was them going to get Adam Peters, because I said if they want a quick return, they got to go get Adam Peters. He's good. I followed Adam Peters for a while. A few of the GMs, because I really get into draft and free agency, because talent evaluation is a skill. It is a true skill to know and not have to take so much time to develop, if that makes sense. And you just know who can come in and perform. It's a skill set. So he is one of the GMs that I would follow and just be paying attention to how they drafted, how the team did, free agency, all of that. But you have to set the standard. What is the standard? Right? Because standard doesn't mean subpar. It doesn't mean mediocre. You have to set it. And I think this ownership group was very clear on what they wanted, and that was competitive and championships. They were clear. And I was thinking, I'm not going to say we, I was like, oh yeah, because that's what you're supposed to say. No. That's never what they said. So I was like, I'm going to see everything I need to know about them, and based on who they picked as GM. When they got Adam Peters, I was like, so that's all I needed. Right? So I see an ownership group that is clear on the mission and the vision, or the vision for the organization. You get Adam Peters that understands how to respond to that. And how he responded to that was, you got to get a coach in here that resonates with the players. Because here's the reality. It doesn't matter whether or not that coach resonates with the media and with the fans. That's for real, right? they have to resonate. They got to be good people, right? You want good people, but they have to be able to get the team to perform. Mm-hmm. Who do players want to play for? Dan Quinn. Now, rewind back. Remember I said this when I figured out I was totally wrong. Mm-hmm. Right? When the NFLPA survey came out, I saw that list of who, the top 5 coaches in the league players want to play for. Dan Quinn was like in the top 3 at the time. And I was like, it is Dan Quinn. Yeah. It's going to be Dan Quinn. Okay. Because it's not about us and who we like, right? It is about what's going to get who. And I was, where were we? I don't even know. Was it Super Bowl week? No, it wasn't Super Bowl week because that was his press conference. Yeah. I don't know where I was, but I started doing some just research.
Yeah. And so he got hired right around the Senior Bowl. Because remember, if you watch the Commander's log, Adam Peters, the announcement came out while he was at the practice at the Senior Bowl.
Exactly. So right before that, before the Senior Bowl, maybe it was East West Shrine Bowl, one of those bowls, but it wasn't the Senior Bowl, where I started finding out not just players who wanted to play for Dan Quinn, coaches that wanted to coach with them. And I said, well, I got that all wrong, but I'm not using the correct context. Right. And so the biggest thing that I've seen is understanding, being clear on your vision, and getting staff that understands that vision to create an environment where that happens. And then you get players that align with that culture. And they've been able to do that. With my background in org change management, like I said, in communications, it has worked seamlessly because I started talking to them last summer. That was my kind of long-term project. I want to see how these changes in the culture result to the football field. Because we all saw, like what we all saw on the football field in years past, that was a direct result of the culture. Yep.
Absolutely.
Like it was. Absolutely. Right. So big change there. And they're not selling wolf tickets. They mean what they say.
Yeah.
They're not selling wolf tickets. Yeah. So, and they're going to try to do their best all the time. But you have to understand their best is Super Bowl. So they when Dan Quinn told us to make sure we got our rest at the end of mini camp, he was like, no, seriously, like when the cameras were off, I don't think the cameras were still on. He was like, no, you guys, enjoy yourselves, but get your rest. Like, don't get your rest. I was like, all right, noted. Use my clues on that one. Because I was the real raggedy by the time. Well, I wasn't raggedy. I was getting ready. But I would be sitting up in press conferences like, when is this over?
Yeah. Look, I could only imagine. I really hope that this is not, I really do think it is, but for your sake, this is not a precursor to what it's going to be this summer. I just think it's going to be, though.
The heat?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. I hope they still do training camp in the morning.
Yes.
Out of there by 12. Now the players, God bless them.
Know? Right.
But right. Me in the media, no way. This is hot. It's really bad.
So 2024 was one of the most exhilarating seasons we've seen as a fan base in over 30 years. And I can't begin to explain to you just the emotions, the range of emotions that we as fans went through during that season. So I ask, and I've been asking just about everyone that has anything to do with the Commanders that I've talked to on the summer series. What was the biggest surprise of 2024 for you, Candi?
Them going to the NFC Championship. I mean, the playoff run overall, right, was like, but the NFC Championship, I mean, every week I was like preparing my saying goodbye stuff. Well, actually, funny story, won't say who it was. I had walked into the locker room. So when was it? Okay, it was definitely during what was the so it was going into Dallas, last game, regular season. Okay. I think it was that Thursday before. I was talking to some media colleagues. I make the comment about locker clean out being on Monday, right? And I was saying, well, I don't know what to do. I'm used to locker room clean out being on Monday.
Right.
The player only heard me say, locker room clean
out. Right.
I'm talking this way. They come up on this, say, who cleaning out their locker on Monday? I was like, good afternoon. And so what I said was,
right.
I gotta roll it back. They just,
yeah. They were ear hustling. They didn't get all of it though.
But literally, they said, "Oh, ain't nobody cleaning out their locker room no time soon."
So yeah,
he was like, "We're gonna be here for the next month," and I'm like, "Okay."
That's the confidence though. But that confidence permeated from DQ and probably AP all the way down. And like you said, week 1, he was upset about that Tampa Bay performance because he thought they were ready, right?
Yeah.
And so you could see, like you said, it's not lip service. No. They believe everything that they say. And so there was an energy that they projected onto us as fans where we started to believe. Because much like yourself, it was like, pinch me. Am I dreaming? Like, do I need to wake up? This is not real. Even down to the last game of the season, regular season against Dallas. Like, as bad as that game went, for Terry to break the record in that fashion, like, it was just extraordinary. It was the perfect cherry on top of a crazy regular season that we enjoyed so much. What was your favorite game to cover last season? There were a lot of them.
There was a lot of them, but the Detroit game, that divisional round, because I'm totally bought in on being objective.
You lost it then.
I know, and I've been saying it, because I'm being transparent. That's part of my, brand, is being authentic and being transparent. I'm not going, some things you don't say publicly, but I always felt led to tell this story because it's real.
Right.
And I mean, I'm poker face. Unless I'm not, because some of my colleagues, if they sitting by me, they'll be like, okay, Candi was really like, oh my God. Like, I'm just feel like whatever the case may be. And there were some moments like the one you just mentioned, the last regular season game in Dallas, and the way Terry broke the record. I was like, let's get it, Terry. Like, you got to say it to yourself, kind of look around like, when you're in Miami. But I kept it real cool. I smiled a few times. I tell people I missed the Hail Mary because I thought they were going to lose. And I was just getting ready for press conference and was like, oh my God, what just happened?
Did you heard the noise and everything?
Yeah, I went to the restroom.
Yeah.
I went to the bathroom. I said, gotta go, get ready because I'm whatever. Walking out of the bathroom was like the building shook. And I looked up at the TV in the press box and they were all hugging Noah. And I was like,
what just happened?
Like,
right.
And there was definitely cheering in the press box. So that wasn't me, because I was going to say, as long as y'all know it wasn't me.
Yeah.
But in Detroit, they have a Ford Field. They have a phenomenal stadium, and it's kind of like you're sitting in the stadium. The press box is like a part of like the crowd a little bit. It's super high, but you're in the air, and it's so loud in there. I was making jokes like, I'm going to try yelling and I'm going to try screaming and see if anybody can hear me. And nobody could, except for the people like next to me. That's how loud it was in there.
Yeah.
That Quan Martin pick six took me down. I said, oh my God. Like, I definitely had to grab on the Donna Hopkins. Like, I had to grab her and scream at the top of my lungs. And she was cracking up. Yes, there were some people in the front office that saw me and they thought it was hilarious, but I was like, I'm back. But that game, because if you watch any of my, for those who may watch my shows, I was always big going back to receipts. The goal was at least 3 turnovers a game. That was the goal. They didn't do that.
No.
Right. So I would still be like, they got to do this. So I'm just like, now I'm counting them off. Right, because that was my thing. The only way people were like, who they got to stop? I'm like, Jared Goff. I mean, of course, it could be Jamar Gibbs. David Montgomery was coming back. But I'm like, they have got to get Jared Goff up out of there. Because if he can pull this off, he's going to. They're going to. And that game was probably the best one that I've probably watched. That one in the Cincinnati game.
Yeah.
The Cincinnati game was definitely like, who it these people?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. So those are two different emotions because
yeah.
that's when you realize, oh my God, they might actually be good.
Well,
Right?
I'm big on progress and
Yeah.
change. So going back to your comment of week 1 with Tampa Bay, this was a very angry team. They were very upset. I was in the hallway because I wanted to see what everybody looked like coming off the field. They were upset. Dan Quinn was furious.
He was mad. That was as mad as I saw him all season.
Angry. Then you go into week 2, they won, but remember they didn't score any touchdowns.
Touchdowns, right?
It was all field goals. And it's like, okay, but you still have your doubts, right? Because you're like, well, this person didn't play on the Giants. That person got hurt.
Right.
If this person catches the football. And it's like, well, who cares? They didn't. So
they won. Right.
They won.
Right.
The Cincinnati game, because I remember that was a horrible, hey, as long as you make it safe, it's good travel, but it was still a horrible experience when we first got there. Like, it's a conversation for a whole nother day.
That's Cincinnati, man. We'll just leave it at that. We've been killing Cincinnati all summer.
I learned that day. And I kept joking, and I was like, clearly they're going to win this football game because we have dealt with so many unfortunate activities today. And clearly they got to win.
Right.
But when they came in, I typically do arrivals. When they came in, they were different. Yeah. They were different. I mean, I go to practice all the time, but as like a unit, they were different. Yeah. And I could feel it. And I'm like, oh, a different type of time tonight. And it was like I was sitting there, even during like warm-ups. And the Bengals, they have a phenomenal light show. That is great. I was like, this is nice. Like, in the whole jungle atmosphere. But I was watching the Commanders and I'm like, do they think that all of this is for them? It was almost like a mind warp where it was I don't know how to describe it other than their behavior, how they were responding was like everybody was cheering for them. The music, the lights, just the whole environment was theirs.
It wasn't too big for them. Past teams, it felt like those moments were too big for them.
Oh my gosh. It was like it totally unfazed. And they were like that, what I'm describing, they were like that through Detroit and Philly. Yeah. Right? They were like that all season because I noticed, I'm like, why they do know these fans are cheering for the other team, don't they? Yeah. No, it was like it was all theirs and they acted accordingly. Yeah. And I definitely saw some different interactions, right? Because you go from scoring no touchdowns to, Brandon Coleman. I still talk about him. A lot of people talk about Jaden Daniels in that game. And of course, you got to talk about Jaden Daniels in all games. But I'm like, give Brandon Coleman his flowers because he put in work against Trey Hendricks. He really did. Yeah, he did. And I just, that was the game it clicked. And the next time I saw them angry was after the Ravens. They were they were angry like they were week 1.
That's right.
But week 1, they were real bad off. They were very upset.
Oh yeah, I don't think we saw DQ that upset the rest of the season. Like you could tell that they really thought they were going to play better coming out of the gate. It was not the type of showing that they wanted to put forth as their opening salvo, so to speak. And so you could tell that left a sour taste in the mouth. Like you said, the Ravens game did as well. And then I think the Dallas game, the first Dallas game, that last game of the 3-game loser streak was a big one as well, where that one hurt. That one hurt, and they responded well from that. I want to ask you to finish this statement. It's a very vague statement. You can go anywhere you want with it. Jaden Daniels is fill in the blank.
What I really thought, is this a family show? Like I can't.
You can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you like.
Okay, well, Dan Quinn just said what came up in my mind was a bad A. Like he's a badass. Yeah. He's a badass. Like legit. Early on in the season, me and my receipts, Cliff Kingsbury, that's one of the things he mentioned. Like he's super cool kid, like laid back and everything, but he's a different person under that helmet. And that is true. I started to see it like, oh,
When was the first time you saw it where you went, oh, he's different? He's different.
It was definitely the Cincinnati game.
Yeah.
Like the Cincinnati game, yes, because there were definitely a few times on 4th and 1 where he was like looking at Cliff like,
yeah.
Like, and I was just like, what is happening? And the Cliff was like, okay, y'all do you get it. All right. And they were getting after it, not in a rude way, because they have the best relationship. Please, nobody take that the wrong way. But when you are a competitor, and Jaden is super, super duper respectful, but hey, when you in the moment and he like, let's go. Jaden, go ahead.
Yeah.
Trust them. They seeing something. And then he and Terry got to talking. They were seeing things and they were rolling with it. But I think I saw it that time. The Ravens game, he was really upset. This is always a bizarre moment for people when I mention this to people, and they're like, how you pick up on this? The Carolina game where he got hurt. When Jaden threw his helmet, I was just like, yeah, he's really hurt and he's very angry. I think the TVs picked it up.
It did. We were scared.
But he was flaming. Like he, even going back to, he was flaming. He was irate. Like you could just see it on his face. And you're so used to him smiling that it's like when he's not and he's really upset, you're like, okay, this isn't good. Like
that's why we were nervous, because we was like, if he's throwing his helmet, you don't ever see him lose his composure. So to see him that upset, I'm like, it has to be bad.
Yeah,
like, really bad.
It has to be bad, and he loves playing. So that's like taking your favorite toy away. And
that's right.
Like it's just, and so it was a few times where you were like, I was definitely like, and it was like the Giants game. He had a couple moments there where I was like cracking up, like, man, Jaden is funny.
Yeah.
like it's now at this point, it's like it's almost like he's playing with people, even he's a competitor. He's a great person, but it's like he got his own little way of talking trash.
Yeah, I mean, he's over there talking to Malik on the sideline, and then 2 plays later, he's throwing the touchdown pass.
Yeah, and he's laughing, and he's back like talking again. This is not what he's doing. And so it's just like, okay. Yeah. But definitely the Cincinnati game, it was a sense of urgency everywhere. And they just came in with a different vibe. And that was just the vibe that continued. Because I spent the week out in Arizona. Remember, they went from Cincinnati to Arizona.
Well, you didn't come back. You just went straight to Arizona with them.
I came home.
Okay, I'm about to say, you just went straight out there with them. I'm like, ooh, you bad girl, Candi.
Well, I was home for 24 hours on the dot, and then went out. And even their vibe in Arizona, that was a game that people don't talk a lot about. They don't talk a lot about.
That was a big one for us as fans because, first of all, we said that Dan Snyder would have never. Right, he would have never spent the money to put them, in hotels and pay for the usage of Arizona State and bring. Because DQ said, "I want to replicate our facility as much as we can." So they took all of that stuff out there with them.
Yeah, they did.
He wasn't. They weren't going to do that. There was no way Dan Snyder would have done that financially. So just the fact that Josh Harris was willing to reach into his pocket and say, no, y'all, whatever you need, go out there. Y'all don't have to come home. Short week. Go ahead, head over to Arizona. I'll take care of all of that. Y'all just go out there and take care of business. That was a big week. And we were in the midst of having not punted in 2 weeks going into that Arizona game, right? Yep. And to see them gel together in that way.
Yeah.
And then play the way that they did.
Yep.
I think that one spoke volumes to us as fans. Like, wait a minute, this is really different. Like, if you thought last week was a fluke on Monday night in front of everyone, this is further proof that this is different, guys.
This is different. That was the game that I was like, okay. Yeah. They didn't just have the juice on Monday night. It wasn't just the lights. Because I was like, they like being in the jungle. This is all right. This is cool. Yeah. But they didn't have all those lights in Arizona.
Right.
It was a big game for Cliff. Right, for obvious reasons.
That's right.
And it was that was probably the game where I was like, okay, they have definitely responded to that week one, how they looked in week one. Right. And I think it was Cleveland after that. Then it was Baltimore.
Right.
And then they went on. It was, and then it started to be, because those weren't like they didn't get into like Hail Mary week until the Hail Mary. You know, all these
Right.
like clothes get last minute, everybody
Yeah.
holding their breath, all the things, you know.
Yeah.
But it was like they all just couldn't wait to play football.
Yeah. It was so fun to watch. So I ask you this, as someone that was there and got to experience all of this, what was the defining moment of that season for you last year? When you said, oh, wow, that was a turning point, or that was a big point in the season that changed everything?
I think the 3-game losing streak. Because the Hail Mary was dope.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
But they were over it. By the time we got back out there with them on Wednesday, it was like,
on to the next.
How many times y'all gonna ask about the Hail Mary? You know, I mean, you know, because at that point, everybody, like the whole team, like all national networks, everybody's calling. They're like, whoever's not busy,
right,
let us get an interview. They do. Everybody's doing radio. Everybody's doing TV.
Everybody wanted a piece.
Everybody wanted a piece of the Commanders. That game or after that game.
And they were hot too. They were at that point 6-2. So I mean, they were a really good team, off to a faster start than anybody thought. And then you had the best play of the 2024 regular season too.
The best, and so that I missed in real life. And I was there. It was embarrassing. I transparency. I told Adam Peters that story how I missed it. And you just keep it offline about the conversation. He was like, what? Like it was
that, I mean, but you're not alone. You know how many fans I've talked to that was like, I was in the parking lot when that play happened. Like,
or people that said they turned their TV off. I've
like,
heard people say they turned their TV off. It was like, what?
I was so disappointed. I was getting ready for my post-game show. I'm hanging up banners and getting things situated, turning the lights on, and you know, I just turned to just briefly see what the last play is going to be. I've seen a million Hail Marys and only like 4 of them ever completed. So I'm like, I'm like, it's okay. I'm just gonna watch this real quick. And I screamed like a 7-year-old girl. I've told the story on my show so many times. I jumped as high as I've jumped probably since I was in high school. And I screamed like I was a 7-year-old girl. My wife comes running down the stairs. She's a commander because she thought the game was over too. She had been upstairs. She was mad. She comes flying down the steps and we're just jumping up and down. And it was just the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, it really was. It was insane. I feel like the 3-game losing streak. Because what was the order? It was the Steelers game.
That's right.
Which
and it was the Eagles.
That would hurt. That
one hurt.
Me, that hurt. That because that was when things, you know, just wasn't going right. I felt like even with the injury, because Jaden was still a little banged up, I felt like he did enough. I felt like the offense did enough. That one when I was a little bit more harder on the defense, for sure, that game. Then they had the short week against the Eagles, and I was just like, I don't know how this is going to go. But I felt like in that regard, they did the best that they could. But, you know, it's a 60-minute football game.
That's right. They ran out of gas.
And they ran out of gas. So they was doing so much. But with Jaden's injury, they just couldn't get started. Then it was like, that 10-day window, and the Dallas one definitely hurt.
Yep. That was the last we saw of Austin Seibert the rest of the year. He was magically hurt for the rest of the year, and he was they were so upset with him too.
Because he had been so successful.
Yeah, he did. That was the part that hurt.
And it was like of all the times, you know, but it was still like that cardiac Commanders looking feel where they just gonna make you keep watching. We can't turn away. Yep. And so I think that was because every week I was kind of like, how are they gonna show up? How are they gonna show up? How are they gonna show up? And the top of that Dallas game was bad. Like it was awful. It was like, who are these people? Like, what in the world?
That one was hard to explain.
Yeah, it was really that was weird. And then second half, but hey, almost doesn't count. So they ended up losing. So that was a defining moment based on how they came out against the Titans. Yep. And then they went out the rest of the regular season.
I point to that Bobby Wagner media scrum with you guys before that Titans game where he said, we're a great team. And y'all come back and ask me, 4 weeks from now or whatever about what I think this team's going to do. It'll be a totally different answer you guys are going to see from us, right? And from that point forward, they didn't lose another regular season game.
Right.
And the confidence for him to say it the way that he said it, the way he projected it, because the fan base, I deal with the fans every day, and their mindset was, here we go again.
Exactly.
Same old Commander,
So,
right?
yes.
Same old Washington, right?
Yes.
Like, here we
Yes.
go. We're about to collapse now, like Ron Rivera used to do, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's different this time, but they weren't trying to hear it.
Right.
And Bobby Wagner spoke confidence into that team,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, right, because then that mentality transcended everywhere,
Yep.
right, and including with the media. Because that's basically hidden. His response to that was based on the types of questions
Yep.
that they were getting, and
Yep.
he was getting in that moment, and that's why he felt, that way.
That's right.
And of course, it's widely documented, and everybody talks about it, that was like the Bobby Wagner week, right?
Yep.
Of going up to that Tennessee Titans
That's right.
game. And I remember there were so many free agents on the team that I would hear, why they got this person, why they got that person, why they got this, why they got that. Now you know why.
Yeah.
Right. Because what was one of the things that in the past, we would all say, between media, fans, are like, who's the leader in the room?
Right.
Who's the leaders? Who are they?
Yeah. It always be Jonathan Allen. That was the one guy that would talk when things weren't going well, and this, that, and the third. But this was a guy with Super Bowl pedigree. This guy came with something that we didn't have, and so his words resonated a lot more and carried a lot more weight in that locker room. Right?
It did, and it does.
Yeah.
Him, Zach Ertz, I always point, because I was the game day captains was a thing.
Yeah.
We would always want to know the game day captains. I thought it was an amazing tactic. Some people was like, why you do it that way? I thought it was good. I thought it was good for morale. I thought it was cool. Yeah. But the postseason captains thing, I was really into that. I was really tracking it. I was trying to figure out who, and I will tell you, the only one I didn't guess correctly, and that just was my bad on who the postseason captains would be, was Jeremy Reeves. Revo, because I look at you got Jaden as the rookie QB. You got two vets in Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner, and then you have two tried and trues on the team that, to your point, fans may not have known they have leadership pedigree. Yeah, like for sure, in Terry McLaurin and Jeremy Reeves. Yeah. And it was this staff and this team and the players they brought in, they've been able to bring that out of these players and be able to cultivate that in these players. I had not seen that before. I'm there. And I'm like, I haven't seen anybody to be able to do like what a Bobby Wagner did that week, or what I would even witness them do for one another. The way, I talk about this a lot too. I hope you've heard me say this before. If not, I'm going to say it here. Please, 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 please love on the fact that there is no quarterback controversy. Okay. All last year, it's going to be Marcus Mariota, it's going to be Jay. Now, I'm not going to lie. After that first joint practice against the Jets, I was like, I don't know. Go ahead and put Marcus Mariota back there, because this ain't looking too good. You know what I mean? But I appreciate this is a staff that takes corrective action, because that's what it's about. Mm-hmm. Right? You shouldn't be seeing issues in July and August and September and October and November, Yeah. And so they would clean that stuff up so quickly, right? Mm-hmm. And they love on each other, everybody. They really do. It's not like a kumbaya thing. We're not selling wolf tickets. It's really real, because I'm there. Yeah. And you all hear sometimes the camaraderie amongst the media and all that. It really is there. Mm-hmm. And it helps that they are good, but they want to be good. I mean, nobody thought they were going to the Super Bowl except for them. Yeah. Right. So it's like there's no quarterback controversy in the way that we've always seen it, or even national headlines, right? So everybody gets a chance to see it. And that was one of the questions that I asked Dan Quinn after the Falcons game, right? Because then that was a moment that the world got to see. When Marcus Mariota, when he was the one who went to talk to Jaden, not Dan Quinn, not Cliff Kingsbury, it was Marcus, right? And Marcus had been sick that week. He had a new baby. He had a lot going on that week. Yeah. We knew some of that. I knew some of that. But when I saw Marcus do that, it was another moment where I hadn't seen Jaden before. And in that moment, I saw Jaden. I said, Jaden is exhausted.
Yeah, he's tired. They literally called that time out because he couldn't breathe.
Like
He
catch
was
his
so
breath.
tired, ready to catch his breath. Right.
It was like Marcus was like, "Hey, get up," and you didn't see no. I mean, he's gonna listen. That's who he is. That's who Jaden is, taking every moment to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So he really was listening to Marcus, like, and as you saw in Marcus, go win the football game. You know, stand up, get up. All right, catch your breath. All right.
Use your God-given ability and go
you know,
win
like because and maybe even for him, perhaps I don't know this to be true, but perhaps he could see he needs somebody to talk to him real quick.
Yeah.
And he knew exactly what to say that would resonate.
Yeah.
That moment was key. And I asked Dan Quinn about it because I had been seeing it all year. Like, yo, this is beautiful the way they all act. Him and Sam Hartman hang out together. Remember, there used to be drama around that too. You got two veterans and another rookie from the same class.
Yeah.
What? We brought in years past, we would have ate that up. Not up in here, totally different environment, right?
Yeah. Right.
That and I don't even think I've released all this yet. We had some one-on-ones with the assistant coaches, and I talked to Coach Tavita about this. That Dallas game at the end of the year, and I did ask Jaden about it as well. Jaden was the biggest Commanders fan in the building, maybe the world, because I was so tickled looking at. I said, Jaden is like excited, and that's what he shared in his response back to me. Was like, it sounds crazy to say it now, like I grew up watching him, and I was just like, oh my god, like he turned.
We all seen a picture with him with the Mariota jersey on. So
he was. I mean, he was cheering and he was smiling and he was just so elated and he's the biggest Commanders fan when he's not out there. It's like, what is going on? But he was truly happy, and I'm like, I don't think. All the quarterback controversy, I really hope the fan base embraces the fact that you have a quarterback room of 4, and you had 4 last year, and there ain't no drama.
Yeah,
that's big for this town.
Of course it is. So I got one connector question, and we're gonna go rapid fire to get you out of here. So 2024, as you mentioned earlier, you said there were so many free agents, right? So many pending free agents, so many guys that they signed on one-year deals. Give me a guy that you were surprised that they didn't bring back from last year's team. And it could be because of production. It could be a combination of production and their standing within the locker room, being a connector guy, or it could just be simply they were really good in the locker room. Give me a guy that you're surprised they didn't bring back.
Hands down, it was Jeremy Chin that did not get re-signed. And I just think that might have just been a difference in maybe preference, perhaps, of location, maybe, I don't know. But I know when they talk about the Commander standard, Jeremy Chin was that. And he was one of the free agents that I was consistently watching to see, right? I was early on, I already knew about Frankie Louvu and saw that very early. It was like, okay, what's Jeremy Chin going to do? And when DQ would get really into the definition of tackling and what they wanted to see from a tackling perspective, Jeremy Chin would exemplify that, right? As well as he was another one who is soft-spoken at times, but when it's time to get down, he in the mix, right? And so he's the one that I was like, oh, what happened there? Because I thought he was going to be re-signed. So he is for sure the one. And maybe it just came down to preferences for whatever reason, but I thought he was coming back.
Okay. So with that said, now we're going to go rapid fire. Position you're most confident in going into training camp.
Most confident, what's that?
The position that you are most confident in with this team from a roster standpoint heading into training camp.
Does quarterback count?
Excluding quarterback. Right? Excluding quarterback. That's easy, low-hanging fruit. I can't let you off the hook that easy, Candi.
Right. But see, me being honest, I'm like, let me just all right, excluding. All right. You might be surprised by this because this hasn't always been the storyline. I am most confident going into training camp around offensive line. I feel good, and that is minus Sam Cosmi because I know that once he gets back, barring any injury, that's always the case though. Barring any injury,
how has he looked? But it's a sidebar question, real quick, because I know he's been working off on the little side field. How does he look?
I mean, he looks fine, but he's in recovery. He's not, don't take my. I mean, he just like Sam. He looks good, and he's working hard. He's working very, very hard, and has been this whole off season. It will be interesting to see like when he does really come back, because that's we all know that's a heavy duty injury right there. Is he going to be ready by the end of the season? He's going to be ready by the second season. What does that look like from even just a preparation perspective? But to that point, with him being out, I feel really good about that group. It has improved. They're making the investment on protecting the number 5, the for real. And I feel really good about that. Another group, and this is, gotta make sure Terry, comes back.
He'll be back.
And yeah, for sure. I just gotta act like,
yeah.
And it made me clutch my pearls for sure when Noah got hurt. But in a perfect world, that was my next group, which both of those groups are very different than what I thought last season or at this time last year. And that's no shade to the other groups. I just don't know. I know what I see, and I see different players, like linebacker, they gonna be, some consistency gonna be there. But they've made improvements. That's one thing I can bank on. I was like, Adam Peters and Gadet, they have not given us a reason not to trust them yet. So but the offensive line I do feel really good about.
That's fair. That's very fair. Game you're most excited to cover this year?
So listen, I have a whole thing on this. I've been saying it. The Denver Broncos game.
I know. I've watched you talk about this. I knew you were going to say it.
Everybody's sleeping on it until I guess when Jaden Daniels said it at the Fanatics Fest over the weekend. The toughest corner he's looking to, looking to face. He said, "I'm looking Pat Surtain. Book it." I'm trying to tell y'all, I'm with these people all the time, and I'm looking, and I'm like,
and that's a Sunday night game too. That's gonna be live.
It's a sleeper. It is a sleeper. And yes, Pat Surtain, everybody. And so I'm really excited about that one. And I got runners. I mean, the division game's going to be that. All the division games going to be lit, I think. But the backups got to be everybody that's seeking revenge. And let's just be honest. And it's kind of funny to say that, right? Like the Commanders got a team that actually cares about them. Between the Falcons, the Bears, again, here, because I'm sure Caleb wants redemption, as does Ben Johnson. And then the Detroit Lions game. Those all are like runners up, honorable mention. Like the Commanders is going to get a lot of work this year, and they know it. And so you got three teams that's just out for you. They looking for you. Right. Like you ruined our season.
You see, exactly. Literally, we ruined your season.
Literally, you ruined the season. Daggone it. And so, but Denver, I make jokes all the time, like, I'm about to go now. but yes, I'm very excited about that game.
All right, and so this is the big finale. I asked all the guests this that cover the Commanders or are fans of the Commanders, whatever the case may be. This is, to me, one of the toughest questions to answer going into the season. But for Candi Waller, what is the definition of success for the 2025 Washington Commanders?
They got to win the NFC Championship.
Wow. So they have to get back there and then conquer this time around.
I mean, unless for this season, barring any injury, unless somebody key gets hurt, which you hope they don't. Right. That's really how I feel.
Okay. I love it. I mean, because the expectations, there are a lot of different expectations. They're wide ranging, but we have Super Bowl aspirations this year. And whether that's fair or not, because again, to be where we are in year 2 of a recalibration is phenomenal. And we still know we got a lot of room for growth. But when you got 5 under center, you got a shot. And so I look at what they've done this offseason, and people keep saying that they closed the gap with Philadelphia. I don't know how much they did, but they have. I don't know if it's an extra, incredible amount. But I think the Eagles roster last year was better than the roster they're putting forth this year. And I think our roster is better. But when it's all said and done, we're in a much better spot from a roster standpoint. They've got the experience at the end of the season. DQ said, we got a lot of experience last year, but the one experience we didn't have was that the experience they got in the NFC Championship game. We didn't have that, right? You hate to lose in that manner, but they needed to take, I don't necessarily say take their lumps, because this isn't basketball. You don't have to lose, right? But you need those playoff experiences. And sometimes you are going to get some scrapes and bruises and some bumps. And they took their lumps last year, and you hope they grow from that experience. But when it's all said and done, now we're looking at it with Jaden Daniels and saying, why can't we win the Super Bowl? Why can't we be like the Chiefs were with Patrick Mahomes in his second year as a starter? His first year as a starter, he went to the AFC Championship game and lost to Tom Brady. Second year of a starter, he went all the way to the Super Bowl and they won the Super Bowl. Why can't that be us? That's the mindset that we have. We'll see if it's right. But if we're listening to Candi Waller and her definition of success for the upcoming season, we'll be in the Super Bowl. That's a successful season for you.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. One of the things that I've been mentioning, they're following the Kansas City Chiefs model and what they did with Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. Because the goal is you got to lock in some sort of championship while he's on a rookie contract.
Yeah. That's the
right.
goal.
Exactly what you just said. I'm like, is everybody watching what I'm watching? Like, that's exactly the model, down to the coaching staff. I hope everyone used their clues and understood and knew how big the coaching staff. And what I can absolutely say is that there were several who had other job offers. They made a very intentional decision about staying together. Kansas City Chiefs do that more often than people realize. Of course, we don't necessarily realize it here in this region because it's Kansas City Chiefs, right? But that's what they did.
Yeah.
That's what the majority of teams who win and get a certain place and want to see that consistency, the majority of the staff, they stayed together, right? Everyone from the scouting department to the coaching staff to the actual team, right? Who were the difference makers? Who were the impact players on the field and off? They must stay. They must stay. And anybody else, when we think they can get better, that's what we're going to do, right? And that's, I mean, I share this too. A lot of people don't like thinking about it, right? Because it's the Eagles, but let's keep it a buck. They won the division. They won 14 games. And they won the Super Bowl. Okay. So if we're talking success, well, if the Commanders don't make it to say they win 14 games and don't make it to the NFC Championship, what's going to be the word then? Right? Or something like that. So it's like, you got to win the division. We know that this is a team that cares about, I'm giving y'all all the clues, all the pro tips. You know, they care about seeding because they even had us looking to see what was happening in that Green Bay Chicago game. Terry scored the touchdown.
Right.
Chicago makes the field goal.
Right.
Oh, they the number 6 seed.
Right.
And they didn't even care about them winning that Dallas game. They were like, we got the 6th seed. Like, no, they didn't even care. But it was, I mean, they cared, but not really. The 6th seed was very important.
Yeah.
But the only way they're going to get home field advantage is if they win the division. And then the seeding's got to map to that. That's the only way they get home, at least for one game. So, and I'm going to tell you what the team accomplished on the road. I mean, they were on the road for like a month. That was insane. And so that's just the way the schedule shook out, right? But I wholeheartedly believe because of all of the talk. Now, they don't really get into it, or maybe they do. And I asked Dan Quinn about this. I might have to post that question because it's so much expectation. It's like, if they don't at least get there again, but I think you got to get there and you got to win it. Because that was a very bad game that they played that day. They got beat that day. It was kind of bad. So that's the only way people are going to believe it's real, because there's still so many people that think it was just magic or luck.
Right.
And you're combating, not that you really care, really, but you kind of do. Like, because if you don't win those close games, then that is a 7-game win season. So it's a tall task. But hey, the Detroit Lions didn't make the NFC Championship, but they got the #1 seed. They won 15 games. The Eagles won 14. They won the Super Bowl. So you really got to do those numbers. It's a numbers game. Now, if they don't win as many games, but neither does the division, they still end up winning division. That's cool. Because being a division winner is awesome. But what's going to hang over their heads is that they were 1 week away from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And these people hold grudges.
Yeah.
So, they don't forget easy.
I love it. I love it.
So they, if you paying attention to some of the stuff they said, you're like, you remember that? My goodness. But yeah. And they were a heartbroken group after that NFC Championship game. They were heartbroken. The whole entire group. And locker room cleanout was kind of sad. It was a bad situation. And I was like, man, I'm sad too. Y'all not tired? Y'all wanna go home? No, they really thought they were going to be there.
Yeah, no. I mean, that hurt us. I mean, as a fan base, it took us about a good 2 weeks to recover. Some fans like, man, I ain't even watching the Super Bowl. Like, I don't even care. I don't even want to watch the Super Bowl.
I mean, hey, if that's success, and if I know them like I think I know them already, then
yeah, it was tough, but more fuel and more motivation for this upcoming season. So
I mean, I'm going to think it's a success, but if I'm taking really objective, like for real, you are expected to do this now.
Yeah. No, the floor has been raised and so has the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
I agree.
Jaden Daniels been on the stage with Dan Marino and Joe Montana this weekend. And I'm like, can we all stop this now? Please? Because this is like.
Yeah. It's like that. I mean, it's levels to this, and he's up there, man.
I think I'm in it so much that I'm like, is all of this really happening? Like, are y'all sure about this? Because I think he's phenomenal. But I'm like, my goodness, can't y'all go back to talking about Patrick Mahomes? You don't even hear it. I mean, we covered Lamar Jackson up the street. Go and talk about him. It's just all Jaden.
Yeah. I mean, what he did last year was phenomenal. And I call it the Jaden Daniels effect. Like, he came in and changed everything in a span of 6 months, 8 months. I mean, nothing's been the same since he showed up on the scene. Nothing's been the same. Nothing's been the same. So, all right. So I enjoyed this so much, even more than I had imagined I was going to enjoy this. I knew it was going to be great. It exceeded my expectations, as I always do. Tell the people where they can find your work so they can make sure that they're plugged into what you have going on.
Make sure you all are following me on X at CWallSE. As was shared earlier, make sure you all are subscribed to Bowie TV. If you are not subscribed, subscribe. Tell all your Commanders loving family and friends about Bowie TV. We have a ton of content there. You can follow Bowie TV Sports on Instagram, X. You can follow me at CEO C Wall on Instagram or Candi Waller on Facebook. Bowie TV on Facebook as well. But definitely all the content. We're on TV. But we're in a channel transition right now, so we're going to a different channel, and we'll post all of that information soon. So I don't want to like break that news too early, but Bowie TV for sure on YouTube, and follow me in all the spaces, and hopefully we'll keep the great content going, and you all will have a lot to sink your teeth into. We have a lot of videos, a lot of scrums, all that. If you missed anything from OTAs and minicamp, we have all of that.
Hey, look, I can't explain to you guys any clearer than I already have that this is who you need to be following if you want all of that access. So please, I'll have all that information down in the description of this video, so you can go over there, follow her on all of those different pages, but also make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel, turn on that notification bell, and you won't be sorry. So I can't thank you enough for this. This was so much fun, Candi, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Stay cool as much as possible, and we thank you for your coverage of the Washington Commanders.
You are very, very welcome, and whenever you want me to come back on, I'm happy to do so.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.